Hey guys, it's YXBA and I'm back with another video. The last time I talked about Pokemon Go, things were very much in an unsettled state. The game was really buggy and really popular, but hadn't launched in very many regions. The world was going crazy trying to get their hands on this title, even in regions where the game was not available. By now, a lot of the major markets around the world have access to it. Here in Canada, we no longer have to find a way to trick the iTunes store into giving us an American iTunes account, and I see people walking the streets in packs playing the game all the time. It is launched in Japan, and every time they release this thing in a new region, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's really got me thinking about the future of the Pokemon franchise and the future of Nintendo's dedicated handheld systems. Some people may view this as potentially transition from the dedicated handhelds onto the mobile devices. And largely they feel like this will cut into the Pokemon market on the dedicated gaming handhelds. However, I don't really think that that is the direction this will go. But before I get into my opinions on this, I thought it would be wise to actually take a little bit of a trip down memory lane and talk a little bit about just how successful the Pokemon franchise has been in the past. Back in the 1990s, the Game Boy pretty much owned the handheld market, and there's a lot of people that mainly credit the Tetris franchise for establishing the Game Boy as the leader in the handheld gaming market. And as true as that is, in the bigger picture, the Pokemon franchise actually was more popular than Tetris. If you think of the Game Boy as a sprinter, Tetris was what allowed the system to get a jump start ahead of its competitors at the opening of the race. But it was the Pokemon franchise that really allowed the system to reach its top speeds and pull away from its opponents. You see, the total sales numbers for Tetris was actually 30,260,000 globally, which was good enough for the second best-selling game in Game Boy history. But the number one game was Pokemon Red and Blue, which came out in 1996 and ended up selling 31.37 million units worldwide. But that doesn't even tell us the whole story, because there were many Pokemon games that were successful on the original Game Boy. And there was really only one Tetris that was super popular. If you look at the top 10 Game Boy games of all time, you'd be surprised to know that 5 of those games were Pokemon titles. 1 of those games was Tetris, and 4 of those games were Mario titles. So Mario definitely chipped in as well. But Pokemon has been, and probably always will be, the biggest driver of Nintendo's dedicated handheld business. And then on the Game Boy Advance, the top 3 selling games were all Pokemon titles, with Pokemon Ruby and Pokemon Sapphire selling 15.85 million units. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green sold 10.49 million units, and Pokemon Emerald version sold 6.41. After that, there was a string of popular Mario titles such as Super Mario Advance, Mario Kart, Super Mario World, and Super Mario Bros. 3. The Nintendo DS, like the Nintendo Wii, was a system that reached a much broader market. This was the one system where traditional games that were the most popular on Nintendo systems were actually not the number one sellers. On the Nintendo DS, the number one seller was New Super Mario Bros. With 30 million units sold, followed by Nintendogs, Mario Kart DS, Brain Age, and then at number 5 and number 7 on the list, you had Pokemon Diamond, Pokemon Pearl, and Pokemon Black, Pokemon White. But these games were still as popular as the Game Boy Advance versions, if not a little bit more popular. So it wasn't like the Pokemon market was going anywhere. It was still very strong and very dedicated, and overall there was more than 50 million Pokemon games sold on the system. Games obviously like Nintendogs and Brain Age broadened the system's appeal, which made games like New Super Mario Bros. And Mario Kart DS, which were a little bit more pick-up-and-play friendly than the Pokemon titles, become very popular on that system. And lately, not much has changed in terms of Pokemon's success on Nintendo's handhelds. On the Nintendo 3DS, the number one selling game is Pokemon X and Y. Down at number 4, you have Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And with Pokemon Sun and Moon coming out this Christmas, it remains to be seen what the heights are of the Pokemon franchise in this generation of dedicated handhelds. Now, the market itself has shrunk slightly over the traditional handheld market. And when I say the traditional handheld market, I'm not talking about the DS, which was an apparition where the dedicated handheld market reached a broad audience. Now, this decline in success of the dedicated handheld market is mostly due to the runaway success of the mobile market, where everybody has a handheld device in their pockets, and less people are finding that they really need to buy a dedicated gaming handheld. It's now a luxury item rather than a necessity item. But in my opinion, the new Pokemon game Sun and Moon, which absolutely looks fantastic, is going to sell even better than Pokemon X and Y. And this is why I think that's going to happen. First of all, the install base of the 3DS has continued to grow, and they've been able to actually sell, I think, a lot of the 2DSs at a cheaper price to the younger demographic. And at the same time that this has happened, obviously, Pokemon Go has become a massive phenomenon. And almost everybody out there has been reminded that they actually are still a big Pokemon fan. Now, obviously, not all of those people are going to run out and buy a 3DS to play the new Pokemon game, but I think Nintendo can do some really interesting things to cross-promote their products. For example, just imagine the power of Pokemon Go, where Nintendo could literally plan a pre-order day at GameStops and other retail outlets like Best Buy and maybe even Walmart all over the world, and actually drive rare Pokemon to those stores on the day that the pre-orders open up for the new Pokemon game. And maybe everybody that pre-orders the new Pokemon on the 3DS gets an added bonus, maybe $10 or $15 of Pokemon Go coins or something extra as an added bonus into the game. I think that you would have massive lineups of people there to pre-order that game, and with 2DSs being so cheap, they could do some interesting bundles with the system and actually sell a lot of hardware. If they're going to continue with the style that they're going with these mobile titles, where they get a lot of people interested in these franchises again, but don't have the exact same experience as they have on their dedicated handhelds, I think their dedicated handheld sales could potentially increase because of all of this. One of the other big factors is that Pokemon Sun and Moon is going to release in the holiday this year, which is going to coincide with winter. So a lot of people that are pumped up about playing Pokemon right now are going to realize that, hey, there's an opportunity here to play Pokemon in the warmth of my home. If I get a 3DS and I buy the traditional Pokemon game coming to the 3DS this Christmas, I think it's going to be huge. I think Pokemon Sun and Moon is going to sell 15 to 20 million units globally and be the biggest selling 3DS game of all time. I would love to know what your thoughts are on this subject. Is the Pokemon Go craze gonna hurt or help Pokemon sales and 3DS sales on Nintendo's dedicated handheld? If you like this video, please click like, and if you'd like to hear more from me, please subscribe.